Good evening, Piper Builder here. Some of you may not follow me on my other stuff there. You can see we've got the cowl mounted temporarily. It's propped up. I wouldn't say mounted, it's kind of mocked. Landing gear's done. Brakes are on, it's done. So that's good. I'm just waiting on shocks. Engine mount. We did our custom setback short mount. Get the CG back a little bit. That's done. Next project is to take this cowling, again, 71, 72, I think somewhere in there, an earlier Citabria and Super Decathlon cowl. It's actually made for an 0320 B2B, I think, engine. It's going to be dimensionally the same as this. I'm sure there's an expert out there that'll say that maybe it's a couple thousandths off or whatever, but pretty much the same thing. That way the air box for the carburetor, oil pan clearance, all that happens. There's clearance here. So in other words, I'm not reinventing the wheel. The cowling is actually designed to fit around this engine, and I'll still be able to come down and run my custom exhaust. Look how much room I've got in here. So I can run my custom headers and still run a heat box over on this side for carburetor heat. And on the other side, I have a lot of room over there as well inside the cowl, and I will run my cabin heat. I'm definitely going to have some cabin heat. I like warmth. I do not like to be cold. So now that lends me to the next thing. So everything fits, and I was really lucky, I guess, that even the dipstick tube is going to go underneath. I won't have to put a blister or a bubble there. So that's all working out good. Width-wise, it's within a 1/16 of an inch. It's unbelievable how close this is to a Piper PA-12 original was. So I'm not going to have to modify the cowl so much. So instead of extending the cowl back, which I don't think is the right thing to do, it's super easy for me to just, when I say extend the cowl, you see the problem there is the firewall is going to go here, and I've got it's about 1 3/4 inches. It's not a tremendous amount, but 1 3/4 inch flange. So when you take this firewall and you build it, it's not just flat. So what you do is you break it over, and you've got typically a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch flange that goes all the way around. Well, a 2-inch flange, that's going to be too much flex. We're not going to do something like that. But I found a way to do stiffeners and reinforcement, and I am completely stealing this idea from another manufacturer because I don't have an original thought in my mind. And we're actually going to come up and do, instead of having just the firewall support the cowling, we're going to come up here and I'm going to weld in some brackets that I'm going to make. They're going to be lightweight and super strong, and will come off of the actual bulkhead, right? The firewall bulkhead come up, and then now we've got legitimate cowl support from the top. So I don't have to rely on this, just the firewall to try to hold that, because that's a lot of vibration. You got a lot going on there. So that's how there's going to be some trickery that goes on there. But I think I've got it kind of planned out. So stay tuned on this. This is going to be a couple of videos. There's no way I can knock all this out in one. So that's the first problem. Get the cowling to the firewall, build the firewall. Once a firewall is built, build firewall bracing. I can do it light and strong. This is all going to come out, and then this bad boy's going to have lots of support. Now we're in good shape. Now once we got that done, now we need to come back and do our transition cowl and our boot cowl. And I'm seriously thinking about doing this out of Lexan. Maybe not all the way up front here, but maybe from here back, for taxi visibility, and just, I mean, the thing's got windows for days anyway, so why stop? But either way, the structure from the firewall goes back, and it supports the top of the dash. So really it kind of becomes a little bit of a monocoque in a sense, that you've got the top of the dash, the sheet that comes out, goes through, and then that becomes the transition cowl where the base of the windshield sits, and then into the cowl there. So I've really got 3 things. I've got cowl, I've got firewall, I've got boot cowl, transition cowl, and then dash. So like 4 things going on there. But this is going to be a pretty good amount of work, and then the airplane's ready to go to sandblast, where I'll use some crushed glass, which won't damage the tubing, and strip off that primer, and then that red oxide primer, and all the other crust that's on there. And then we'll be ready for assembly. So we're actually closer than one might think. So as for how we're going to do this, I've got everything precisely measured so I can locate it. Whether you're building race cars, airplanes, tractors, school buses, whatever, if you bump it, you take it off. You've got to have it where you get it back the same. Otherwise, you'll get to the end of your project and you'll be disappointed because you're going to really have to fudge the corner somewhere, or you paint yourself into a corner. So I've got measurements there that I'll constantly be checking, but I'm going to make some temporary bracing. I'll put some 8L clamps and make some bracketry there. Same for the top. That way it's repeatable. If I take it on or off 30 times, it doesn't matter. It goes back in the same spot. And then lastly, I've already leveled the airplane. Well, it's sitting level just because the gear. And then we come in here, and I've got the cowl sitting level, and we've got a good foundation. So start square, and it'll finish square, I promise you. So stay tuned.